it's great to get back to the Patreon entries for the 2019 Orchestration Challenge. For the past few days, I've been finishing up the some parts of the audiation course, the internal ear training, and I've also been doing kind of a bucket load of the website entries, getting most of them out of the way. It's really great to come back to my supporters and to look at such cool scores. I mean, like this one. This one has got so many great ideas. I mean, there are some things that need to be fixed about it, but generally speaking, it's a really nice score, and it's got some very cool things in it. There's something I'm kind of running into quite a bit with the other entries from the website, and that is there were a lot of scores where the sound set being used for the mock-up was not too realistic. You know what I'm saying? It kind of did the job in terms of just kind of giving a rough picture of what the score sounded like, and of course I don't need it at all. I can just look at it and hear in my own internal sound set what should be what should be happening. But the issue is not whether or not I like sound sets and mock-ups. It's just that it's becoming much more of a professional reality, right? So I would say in this case that they're just a bit trebly, a bit artificial sounding. If you are using a notation app that is compatible with Note Performer, that's like a cheap option that will keep things sounding more realistic. It's just just thought I would put it out there. It's no pressure, or not saying that this is bad or anything like that. It isn't at all. Okay, so now to continue on. This is kind of a neat idea here that you've got here in the flutes. That this sort of the staccato above, and it's sort of trading off between those B flats and the first and second part. That is neat. It gives the player a chance to take a breath. The thing that I like the most, a lot of this is similar to things that I've seen in other evaluations. What I liked the most was this descending pizzicato through the octaves. That was really nice. And then you've got something similar here, answering in the harps, right? And then back to the double basses. So, that was a cool feature. The trading off between the winds, so that people can take a breath and play patterns and so on and so forth. That has been, that a lot of orchestrators have copped onto that. That's great too. This is an original touch right here. This ba-da-bum, ba-da-bum. I like that a lot. That little bit of ornamentation. Now, I think here you do not have to say like mezzo piano, right? I don't think you need to mention mezzo piano anywhere. I think it totally works fine just saying piano. You have to think of piano as being like a whole dynamic world, right? With a lot of space in it. It's not just this one fixed point on a ladder of dynamics. Think of P as being like this big world, this big globe, and at one end of the globe, like sort of right up against the very, very back wall, there's pianissimo and triple P and quadruple P and whatever. And then kind of starting to merge towards almost like a Venn diagram towards this other globe, which is F, right? But there's this whole world, like there's this whole space in which P inhabits, right? So piano crescendo and piano diminuendo and so on and so forth, and sotto voce. You can have like poco P, just like a little soft and everything else before you have to even bring in mezzo piano, which is kind of like a blending dynamic or a dynamic on the way to something else. So long story short, you don't need to mark mezzo piano to sort of make up for coming in the middle of a hairpin. All right. It's fine just to mark P. Right? And then you should also be following kind of like the surge. Like, you know, I would say just start with P here and go da-da-dum, like crescendo, then da-da-dum. See, that would work better. Just put the, you know, put your hairpins here and just make everybody P, right? Wait, that came out a little strange. Make everybody have the piano dynamic. So, yeah. Anyhow, one of the problems with the sound set I felt was that it was giving the wrong impression of what harp sounded like. The sound set, or the sound from the set, really makes the harp sound almost like a celesta or like a glockenspiel. It has like a very glittery, tingly kind of a sound, whereas, you know, a harp is just really is more guitar-like. Do you know what I mean? These are some nice rolls. So what I would caution you to do here, this roll here, and this may all be an attempt to get the playback to play all of the pitches in the roll. Right? That's kind of what I suspect here. However, like the way that this should really be notated is separate chords in either hand, okay, and then just one roll mark, no arrow, okay, no up arrow. You might have heard me say this in other evaluations, but don't use an up arrow unless you're going to use down arrows as well, right? And if they're and not unless those down arrows are in the same passage. So like if you went up and then down and then up and then down, then I would say, yeah, go ahead and use an up arrow there to make a difference between the two. But all rolls are just default going up, right? So when you put the arrow on the roll, the harpist thinks, like, wait a second, where's the down roll? Am I missing something? And they'll look throughout the part. Or are you just wasting their time? Just you know, the meaning is clear. Just put in a standard roll and you are fine, okay? Just, you know, don't do up rolls on things, all right? Otherwise, it's pretty good. See, now here is where, like, if everybody was soft, right, then here is where you would put in, like, mezzo forte or mezzo piano. Probably mezzo forte, I would say. Mark this mezzo forte. And then you have a balance between the, you know, all this rushing around and the harp, which is an extremely soft instrument. Okay. But yeah, good strategy of using harps in different keys, right? Notice, like, these aren't transposing instruments, everybody who's watching this. These are instruments in different, actually pitched in different keys. So, like, that's why there aren't any naturals here. Now, okay, that is a cool idea, but, you know, just in terms of, like, copyists, like, a copyist might see this, and then they might just change everything to D flat, and then just, you know, throw in the accidentals, just so that it's clear, like since the conductor might not be expecting the change, you know, or you can just leave it the way it is and just see what happens. All right. So now we go into that scrubbing part, and so on. Yeah. And here, as I've mentioned before, it kind of wasn't necessary to preserve exactly the same dynamics. Like, this could have been a crescendo to a forte, right? And it's gotten very fierce in the middle. So piano rolling to a mezzo forte. You know, this all works pretty good. Triangle. It's a little bit off the line there. Then we've got our snare drum. This all has a nice rhythm to it. And then here on the next page, we sort of see a continuation of that same thing, same strategy. And then the winds come in as a contrast, you know, which is nice. Kind of the same percussion thing happening here, except, like, you lose the timpani. So here's a situation where, like, the music is getting more emphatic, right? But we have less push by the timpani. What if you didn't have timpani before, and then you added it here, right? So that as the music built, then you would have more and more push to it, right? Anyway, just a thought. Or if you just kept the timpani going, or had maybe bass drum or some other kind of thing. I know I said 2 percussion here. Maybe I should have allowed for a third one, because, like, I think some people, like, would have put in more instruments in effective ways. So yeah, I just wanted to keep the battery, the percussion ensemble, from getting to be too huge. But yeah, this all works pretty well. Kind of the same thing happening across the section. Certain voices joining together, oboes coming in when they can, to thicken that upper line gradually, bit by bit. And same thing with the clarinets, thickening the line gradually. And that's kind of nice to have these like dancing eighth notes at the bottom, and then trilling up to grab that, and so on and so forth. So and then similar to other arrangements, we're seeing just like the harmonization in here being done by horns. In this case, a little bit of help from the trumpets. All right, so and then we are back to work, and what I like here is that you don't do exactly what you did before. I like the fact that you got some variety here, right? You've got this bassoon part here. You got the violas taking over on that lower pattern, and like the descending harps once again, rather than pizzicato. That's I think that it's a wise decision to put in some variety here, and also to look forward to the way that you are going to be going with this arrangement. And once again, yeah, so this is the way you should have scored those other harps. So like you do not need up rolls. Just to be absolutely sure here, when you do this, you are telling the harpist to roll the chords at the same time, right? So this will go budalum and that'll go budalum at the same exact pace, right? Whereas if you really want to roll from bottom to top of the entire harp, then you have to have the line going all the way up. But once again, just don't bother with arrow up, right? And just put in the standard roll sign. All right, and see, like as I'm going forward with this page, I'm sort of breaking out of just evaluating the same 13 bars, which is fun. I mean, it's just a wonderful challenge, but it's great to pull ahead now and to look at the other ideas that were going on. So yeah, I mean, like all of this stuff works pretty well. There isn't anything too far out of whack, like anything going into uncomfortable registers or anything, it's just a question of whether or not it works. And I do like the whole idea of the winds emerging from the string, like this sort of string patterning, right? That just like the voice of the winds emerge from out of that twice. And it's interesting that this breaks up, like having the rolls on the first and third baton strokes sort of gives it kind of like a feeling of a four, very, very regular feeling after all of these, all of this 9/8. So continuing on, we're we're seeing some of this, so like kind of have a gradual like piano to mezzo forte. I guess that all sort of works dynamically. We're sort of gradually, you're terracing the dynamics little by little. That pretty much works. And this is a good mixture of wind and string functions and textures. So like no problems there. Kind of wondering whether or not some of these phrases could have had some nuance to them. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like having some hairpins pushing forward a little bit. We've got that here. I mean, is that just because you end up on forte here with everybody else? Right? Because like everybody's increasing here. If these phrases had some push to them, had some hairpins pushing forward, then maybe they were just like it gives more of a spring to the to the phrasing, to the the slur and then the staccato. And then I just really love this snare drum. Now this glittering harp stuff this felt a little bit more realistic in terms of like your sound set. So that was all cool, and this is all pretty playable. This is going to take a bit of practicing. It's more of a pro orchestra type of thing. Like I can imagine like a like a semi-pro orchestra needing a bit of time to practice some of this stuff. Yeah, like with some of these gestures where you have a you have like a big push and then suddenly everything drops off. It's kind of good to add like a little comma or breath mark. Do you know what I mean? Right at the end of it, just so like there is really the sense of you know, that you're just not just coming to a abrupt halt, but you really are jumping off the cliff at the top, right? And that's sort of like that comma just lets you know that there's that you're about to jump back down to a lower dynamic level, right? So that you kind of the players don't overhang and they're ready to just sort of shut off the noise together, right, all at once. And the conductor may also take advantage of that breath mark to slightly stretch this the beginning of this beat here, right? So this bar line becomes more ambiguous, right? And the sound of the hull can relax a little bit before this gets brought in. And I'll probably mention this on other scores from this point on. Is just that if you study the way that I did the way that I orchestrated my score, there were ritardandos, there were cesura, there were fermatas, there were places where the orchestra was allowed to flex a little bit or not really stop, but just like really stretch apart, right? So that there could be the beginning of the next phrase could really come from its own place rather than just suddenly hurrying on just right, one right after the other. Okay, so yeah, we're going back into a bit of a waltz here, with the timpani taking the papa, the papa part of the papa. And that works actually pretty good. It was nice that you had that just really soft sound, and this was great too that you didn't overdo the downstroke for each group of three. So yeah, and this all works great. Oboes and flutes, sort of harmonizing, sometimes parallel, sometimes in more standard 4-part harmony or 3-part harmony from time to time. So yeah, so it's all this all worked out pretty well. And then bringing in the clarinets to contrast, something I did as well. Yeah, and just very soft horns behind it all. This is a really nicely orchestrated passage right here. I might throw in an instrument myself to double this pizzicato here. Like, you're not doing anything with your you're not doing anything with, like, say, English horn, right? So English horn could basically just be doubling this whole part here, staccato at pianissimo, right? And then you just get like a nice punch to all of these pitches. Right? Just a suggestion there. Okay. All right, and then the energy is starting to build towards our little mini apotheosis on the next page. Right, so like first we've got the strings in these big octaves, divisi and so on. It doesn't really need to be divisi until you get to here, right? So I mean, it's like this. All these octaves are pretty easy to do. I mean, maybe not after the arpeggio. It's just suddenly put your fingers on that octave. It's not the funnest thing in the world. So yeah, it should be divisi, but it is possible to do this kind of scoring divisi just so long as you don't have to do like big octave leaps and stuff. Yeah, very cool. And then you just you've got some doubling there, obviously. Cellos, English horn, bassoon, kind of in a triple octave. All right, and then bringing in the basses. Okay, keep in mind that like a lot of this really rapid, fluid phrasing in double basses has there's a certain roughness to it. It doesn't have that same smoothness and elegance that the cello does. It's elegant for double bass. Double basses can play it according to their own sense of elegance, but like just really, really rapid stuff like that can tend to kind of get a little muddled in the ear, way, way, way down there. So watch out. And then you've got just sort of these very coy, very, very coy upper winds answering the strings. right? And just or just playing on top of them. And that sets up our last little 3 bars, right? And this was very interesting that you have like such full brass here, and then you just basically just drop the strings. It's it's kind of I mean, it works pretty well. It's like the audience will not feel the drop, but they will feel the shift of timbre right there. But this all is fine in the winds. It's kind of nice. I like this, like just little bits and pieces being doubled, like, and I guess you're giving people time to breathe. You may not really need to do it all that much. If they get a breath right here, they could probably, both players could just play all the way through. Okay, and now here's a little bit of scoring advice. Don't write A1, okay? All right, okay. So A2 is saying with 2, right? Okay, with 2 players. Now, if you have a single player, you've got to tell us which one it is, right? Like okay, so let's just say that like you had 2 friends coming over, and everybody knew that you always hung out with your friends, and your mom was asking you, how many of your friends are coming over tonight? And you would just, you said, oh, the regular 2 are coming over. And your mom would say, okay, great. Now, what if you said, oh, just the regular 1 is coming over? What would your mom say then, right? She would say, like, which one, right? That's what we need to know. A1, which one? The second, the first, right? You never write A1 in a part, right? That's not a thing. So write like 1 period, or 1 tiny little 0, or 1 in Roman numerals, right? So that means first player, right? And then if you were to write 2 period, or 2 with a little 0 right next to it, or you can get that little 0 by holding down the Alt or Option button and typing the 0, right? And then you get the little, it's almost like percentage, right? Or not percentage, excuse me, degree. So it's almost like saying we're typing out 1 degree, right? So it's that same little small O. Or just like the Roman numeral if you're using Roman numerals, which people kind of don't anymore. So yeah, so please don't do A1, A2, or 1 or 2, right? Or like the number 1 or 2 for the first player or the second player. There's a great video. I don't know if Justin Toki named his channel Music Engraving Tips, but he has a whole video on, like A2, 1, 2, divisi, unison, like all of those terms and how they're used. Anyway, but that's pretty much all I had to say about your score. It's a really cool score. I could just keep going on and on. I mean, this was really, really nice too, though it's not really part of the category for, it's not part of the guidelines for this category, but it's still really nicely orchestrated. I mean, it's, very cool harp scoring there. Nice, like, you've got this flutter tonguing in the flutes, which might actually work out better for strings, but it's a really different sound than you would expect. Like if you have just really heard, just heard a bit of flutter tonguing here and there, it like long stretches of it start to wear at the ear after a while, right? Or they're not as delicate and fluffy as especially at mezzo forte to forte, right? This is really going to kind of above. It's just going to really like kind of rattle. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, a really cool score, really great beginning to all of these, all of the evaluations for this category, which I'm doing today on a kind of a slightly rainy, chilly Thursday afternoon here in Wellington, New Zealand, and I just feel great about just knowing that I'm doing this evaluation and that it will be uploaded as soon as I finish editing it today. So just great work. Please consider entering the next year's orchestration challenge. Would really love to see your approach to the score that I'm going to be introducing then, which is once again, I'll keep that a secret, no spoilers, but it is a really cool score and one that nobody may have thought of. Thanks very much. And now, if people are watching this and would like to, let's watch the next video in this series, our seventh entrant in the semi-brev category. And it would be really great, in fact, if all of the semi-brevs could watch each other's videos and comment on each other's, and kind of show each other's support, whether it's on the Patreon post or in YouTube, or if I'm going to be sharing these on Facebook too. So that would really be awesome. Thanks so much.